Hello everyone, welcome to MediaNama. In a major ruling, the United States District Court of Columbia found Google guilty of being a monopolist in the search market and a subset of the digital advertising market. This antitrust lawsuit against Google was filed in 2020, and Google was accused of using anti competitive tactics in the search engine and search advertising market. The court, headed by Judge Amit Mehta, ruled that the tech giant had been exhibiting anti competitive behavior through its exclusive contracts with various devices and operating systems, notably a multi billion-dollar with Apple, and several other exclusionary practices that violated the certain provisions of the US antitrust law, the Sherman Act. Google and the Department of Justice will now battle it out in court to decide the effective penalties. We have with us MediaNama journalist Simone Lobo, who will speak to us in detail about the ruling and relevant arguments in the case. Could you give a brief into the reasons behind the accusations of Google's anti-competitive or monopolistic behavior, firstly in the search market? What were the key observations made by the court in this regard?
So Google was accused of maintaining its monopoly through various exclusivity deals, like you mentioned. Google has entered exclusive deals to be the default search engine with two major browser developers, Apple and Mozilla, and also major Android devices like Samsung, Motorola, and Sony. So with these agreements, Google is presented as the primary browser or search engine on this device or operating system. And in return, they get a share of Google's revenue from search. And Google has this multi-billion deal with Apple, like one of the largest phone distributors globally, and all Android systems basically. So that, and it also requires Android manufacturers to upload 11 Google applications, including Google Search and Chrome, which cannot be deleted. So the courts found that Google was, very dominant in these fields. And it also found that Google was very, very staunch in maintaining its position as the default search engine. And in various negotiations, it denied their partners any opportunity to, introduce alternative search engines. Similarly, when it comes to advertising, Google owns all the apparatus for digital advertising. What that means is that, briefly, for advertising in a digital space online, you need an ad server, an ad exchange, and a platform. And Google owns all of these. So it has a lot of control over digital advertising. And that's why the courts didn't have a hard time proving that Google had a monopoly, since, there are numbers to prove this, just how high Google's usage is. You see that almost 95% of queries on Apple come from Google. So there are no competitors, is what the court said, but that is not enough. What the courts needed to prove in addition to this was abuse of dominance.
So, how has Google's dominance in the search engine market impacted rival search engines, particularly in terms of strategic deals, market reach, and feedback loops?
Okay, so let's focus on search for now. Like I mentioned, Google has all these exclusivity deals where they have revenue share agreements. Now, obviously, Google is the most frequently used search engine in America and gains a lot of revenue. What the courts found that these revenue share agreements became indispensable to Google's partners, financially speaking, which is why a lot of them could not consider other search engines. We saw, for example, that Microsoft offered to sell Bing to Apple, which, if you think about it, would be lucrative to own a search engine, right? But still, Apple found that having a revenue share agreement with Google was far more lucrative. So essentially, what the court was saying is, if Bing, Google's competitor, didn't stand a chance, it's Google's biggest competitor, how could smaller players, even try to compete? And we also saw that Mozilla briefly dropped Google for Yahoo and Bing, and soon they found that they too needed Google to survive. So what this also does is create a feedback loop. Firstly, because of Google's very strong push to be a default, more and more people use Google, right? So that creates a phenomenon where Google gets a lot of data, and data is extremely vital to creating a good search engine. And the more questions a search engine gets, the better is its performance, since it learns what people want, and so on and so forth. And because of that, other search engines which don't have the same amount of data or usage that Google does, they don't have an opportunity to develop. And this makes it so that Google is the best product in the market. And developers again have to pick Google since it's best for their consumers. And this creates a barrier of entry. And now what the courts found was that Google was aware of this. It knew how powerful it was and did not consider it while making decisions. It just never considered anyone a worthy competitor, so to speak. So because of this, they made changes that didn't exactly benefit consumers and also didn't innovate enough, simply because they can. And because of that, the court said that there is this larger ecosystem where smaller players are not innovating. And since Google is dominant, there is no investment either. So, and that's why the courts found that Google was a monopolist in search.
Can you elaborate on how Google has leveraged its monopoly in the search engine space to sort of gain an advantage in the digital advertising space?
Right. So once the court established Google's monopoly in search, it was easy to see how it would leverage that for digital advertising. But first, we need to understand that Google was found dominant in a subset of digital advertising called search text ads. The court did not find Google guilty in the wider search ads market. So now the reason why they found Google was abusing its dominance in search text ads was because Google was affecting the prices of these specific ads. Like I mentioned earlier, Google owns the apparatus for digital advertising, and digital advertising takes place through auctions. What the courts found is that Google raised prices incrementally so that advertisers could view prices increase, and they would think of it as just like ordinary price fluctuations. And it sort of said that all these changes were to help smaller players. That's what Google said. But no one could verify that since there's a notorious lack of transparency with these auctions. Keep in mind, there are multiple antitrust cases for this auction process specifically. So what the court found was that Google introduced these measures that were not helpful for advertisers and also increased the prices. Another thing the court found was that Google had things called search query reports for advertisers that gave them insight into user behavior and helped them understand the auction process better. And it contains analysis on information such as things like keywords and queries that produce more clicks. And this is very important for an advertiser to understand while actually bidding for an ad space. But what Google started doing was it stopped giving insight into queries that resulted in one click. Like these may not seem very fruitful because one click, but they amount to a lot. But Google said that it would not provide this because of privacy concerns for its users. And many advertisers told Google that this was quite harmful for them, yet it did not, introduce these again. Google also introduced this provision to supposedly help small players called keyword matching. Basically, an advertiser needs to add a keyword to its ads, right, to get picked up. So Google introduced an automated process where Google itself would match the advertiser's ad with an ad space and automatically enter it into auctions based on the keywords. This automated system, it did not give advertisers the choice to pull out of an auction, and it made it very expensive for them. And the courts found that Google was using this to add more advertisers to the auction, and in turn, gain higher revenues. Since more people were bidding, it would raise prices. And once again, they found that Google made these changes, but it didn't seem to care as to if it would lose its bidders and advertisers to competitors, because there is no competition. Google is far more lucrative to advertisers despite all these changes they make, just by virtue of how dominant it is. Like bidders said that they would bid more on Google in spite of these changes than they would on Bing, just because of the exposure they would get. It is also worth noting that Google was not found to be a monopolist in like larger
Hmm.
digital search advertising market, like I mentioned, because prices for these ads did not increase. The courts sort of had a look at it and said that no, there is no price increase, so there is no monopoly. And also, the court said that there are new players like Amazon coming in, which proves that there is a wider competition and there are no barriers of entry.
Right. So could you take us through the key arguments that Google has, put forth in order to defend its position in the against these antitrust allegations?
So Google's sort of main argument is, and it makes complete sense, that the reason why they are dominant is because they are a superior product. Developers are choosing them because they developed at the right time and also had the foresight to enter into these exclusive deals at the right time. Google and Apple's first deal was in 2005, and the court also acknowledged this, but they said it's no excuse. They have created an environment where there are these feedback loops and network effects, and there is proof that there is no competition. So because of that, it has the superior product. So that was no excuse for the courts. And Google also said, interestingly, that it had competition from specialized vertical providers or SVPs. These are sites like Amazon, Expedia, and Yelp. They respond to commercial queries for like specific subjects, now take shopping, dining, and all of that. So what the courts found was that this didn't make a lot of sense, because a lot of times they're completely different. And also the courts found that SVPs and Google were complementary. For example, a user enters a query for red shoes on Google, and it sees a product link on Amazon. It clicks on it, it'll enter a search for red shoes on Amazon, and that's how it'll get its product. So it's complementary, not exactly cannibalistic. But
Right.
another thing that Google mentioned that was interesting was it thought of social media as a competitor, and it cited us. And this is probably true, because in 2022, Google itself said that it had conducted research and found that younger people are using TikTok and Instagram much more than older generations. About 40 people
Hmm.
of younger people move to TikTok and Instagram for looking for information. But what the court said was that there was a 2009 study by Google that found that users that use Facebook also use Google more. I personally think that this was 2009, things have changed. But regardless, that's what the court said. And it also said that you cannot substitute social media and Google. It's like, again, the SVP thing, where it is too specific. And finally, most interesting is
Hmm.
Google cited AI as a threat and a competition in search, but the court said that this doesn't make sense for now and the foreseeable future at least. So that argument was thrown out.
Hmm. Interesting. So, in your opinion, could the recent US ruling against Google have any implications for ongoing antitrust cases in India, such as those related to the Google Play Store, is one of them?
So I don't know if this will have a major effect on the CCI's decision with regards to Play Store. This is my opinion, and I'm not an expert, but Google's billing policy on Play Store is a different ballgame. I think Google and Epic Games may have more of a bearing on the CCI's decision, but I'm not sure. But with respect to Google's search engine and pre-installing apps like Play Store on Android, I do believe that there could be an effect in India, because the CCI has fined Google about $162 million previously in 2022, if people remember. And for that, Google has appealed with NCLAT. And I think if Google is found to be a dominant player in such a major jurisdiction, it won't help their case in India. I also think that
Right.
multiple players in other countries, including India, will bring up these same arguments with their respective competitive authorities, just to
Hmm.
pressure Google and to make the changes that can benefit stakeholders, whether it be developers, advertisers, whatever. Also, this is to say nothing of the digital competition bill. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs released the digital competition bill, and that would make Google a large player, a systematically significant digital enterprise, SSDE. And that would require it to unbundle its services and allow it to redirect to third-party entities. And that is if the
Hmm.
act passes, of course. And that will change Google how we know it as Indian consumers. It might change it drastically. So it'll be interesting to see what changes Google will make. It might also have to terminate its exclusivity agreements with Apple in the US. And if it's doing it in a huge jurisdiction like the US, maybe they'll do it globally. I'm not sure. But this is definitely a landmark antitrust case in our time. This is as big as the 1998 lawsuit that caused Microsoft to unbundle with Internet Explorer.
Hmm.
It is yet to be seen how like a industry giant like Google will be affected by this decision. And I suppose we'll see what comes out of it as Google and the Department of Justice battle it out in court in a couple of months. So yeah.
All right. Thanks, Simone. For our viewers, MediaNama has covered the ruling in detail. You can check our website, medianama.com, to read the stories and follow our YouTube channel to view more such explainers and commentary on important issues in the tech world. Thank you.